2017, the elected representatives of the Catalan people, in line with the pre-election mandate that they received, facilitated a referendum on independence. And that referendum, which was held on the 1st of October 2017, was met with a violent response from Spanish state forces. Voters were physically attacked as they made their way to vote in what were unprecedented scenes in modern Western European history. Despite this, over 2 million Catalans voted for independence, and the reaction of the Spanish state was excessive and destructive. The Catalan Parliament was dissolved and political leaders imprisoned, jailed, let's remind ourselves, for that heinous crime of organising a democratic vote. Community leaders, political activists, even musicians have since also been jailed for participating in peaceful political activities. The Spanish government is even attempting to remove democratically elected Catalan representatives from their positions as members of the European Parliament. The actions of the Spanish government, I have to say, have been disappointing, if not all that surprising. But it has been the inaction of the European institutions that has been the most disconcerting. If the events that I have just described were occurring in certain parts of South America or Asia, the outcry from EU leaders would be deafening. We here in Ireland know the consequences when powerful governments deny the right to self-determination. Over 100 years ago, the Irish people voted for independence, and the British government refused to accept that mandate and instead opted for violence, oppression and eventually and ultimately the partition of our country. And their failure to accept the right to self-determination continues to have consequences, as the EU itself has learned following and as a result of Brexit. It is tragic that the British government or the Spanish government has not learned from the mistakes of their British counterparts a century ago. But it's utterly shameful that the European Union has allowed the Catalan crisis to fester. It's shameful that not a single EU leader has stood up for democracy, stood up for human rights, stood up for justice on behalf of people within the EU. They cannot credibly lecture others on these matters while this situation continues within European borders. In the absence of a semblance of leadership emerging from the figureheads of the European Council, the European Commission, the European Parliament, it is incumbent on Ireland to provide that leadership. In acknowledgement of our own history, of our own experience of democracy denied and of peace building and reconciliation, we are perfectly placed to stand up for the rights of our fellow Europeans in Catalonia. So I urge the Taoiseach to use the opportunity of this week's European Council to make that stand on behalf of the Irish people, on behalf of democracy, on behalf of self-determination. It is the very least that our fellow Europeans should expect from this proud fellow nation.